Okay, welcome back. It's time to take a look at the new Navy battleships. Now, these Navy battleships are very similar to the Marauders from EVE Online. They have amazing DPS, and most importantly, they have an amazing tank. So it will be very interesting to see how these ships will work and how will they perform. This is the Tempest Navy. This is the first one that I'll be flying. But first, let's take a look at the basic info at the trade description. Robonus plus 10% large cannon activation time, minus 10% damage control reactivation delay, and plus 10 seconds damage control activation time. This robonus is going to be very similar throughout the Navy battleship line. Expert large cannon operation bonus will give you plus 20% large cannon damage, plus 10% large cannon plus 10% large cannon accuracy fall-off, plus 6% large cannon tracking speed. Expert battleship command bonus will give you plus 4%, minus 4% signature radius. Expert electronic warfare plus 5% scan resolution and plus 5% standard strength. Overall, pretty good stats. Very interesting how this has a signature penalty bonus. So this ship is meant to be used with a micro warbribe. 2 drones and high slots for low slots, 4 medium slots, 6 low slots, 3 combat and 3 engineering rigs, 164,000 overall defense. Now, the Tempest Navy can be a shield or armor tank, and here you can take a look at these insane resistance values on both shield and armor. In this video, I'll be focusing on the shield tank, but when I do the in-depth review, I'll be doing armor and shield tank. Will be fun to see with what kind of crazy builds I can come up with on these ships. Now, this Tempest is not my ship. My friend borrowed me the ship to record this video, so I can't really do a lot with the rigs. I have to return the ship in one piece in the end, so I don't have to. I have to remember that. So here we take a look at the other stats. Now, the capacitor is perhaps the lowest capacitor out of the 4 Navy battleships, but the Tempest is supposedly the fastest, but we will see its speed later on in this video. Now, on to the build. I have 2,700 DPS, which is, not bad. This is my friend's build that he uses on this ship. I mean, this is his ship after all. Now, I'm going to buy some rigs just to have some replacement, because I'll be changing the rigs. So in the end, I have to return the ship in its original state. So I'll have to return the rigs that were installed. So this is the, I would say, PvP build. Overall, the stats on the autocannons are very nice. 2 webs, a neutralizer, a scrambler, 1 tracking computer, 1 extender, damage control, and triple gyro stabilizers. Now, as for the nanocore, you have a lot of options. Now, since this is a Tempest, all Tempest nanocores will be usable. So if you have a nanocore laying around for your ship, or if you had a nanocore from the Tempest Striker or the Tier 9 Tempest, you can easily use that nanocore on this ship. It will work just fine. Now, I don't have a nanocore, so I'll be flying the ship without a nanocore, but in one of the future videos I'll be picking one of these nanocores out. Probably going to be the Illusionary Ghost, mostly because I like how it looks. So that's one of my plans for one of the future videos. Again, I plan to do a 1v1. Basically, I want to match up all of these ships to see how they perform. Now, this is a active tank build, active shield tank build that is inspired by a Vargur build from EVE Online. Now, the Navy ships are technically Marauders. They have the Marauder tank, and they do have nice DPS. So I will treat these ships as Marauders because that's what they're supposed to be in this game. And I have changed the rigs, one anti-EM, anti-thermal, and one rig to extend the shield volume. And here you can take a look at the resistance values. Again, I'm pretty happy with the tank so far. Now let's undock and let's take a look at the active stats of the Tempest Navy. Now I'm not really sure why they named them Navy ships. Would be much easier to just call them Marauders and just, you know, use the Marauder hull. But it's, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But in any case, a very interesting ship indeed. Okay, let's turn on the adaptives. Micro warp drive is on as well. 1.3 thousand DPS, which is fine currently. 472,000 hit points, and yeah, the stats are pretty good. This is a active shield tank build with dual boosters. Now, with a capacitor heavy build, I usually like to use multiple Nosferatus, and in the future we will be getting the capacitor boosters, so that's going to be helping with a active tank build like this as well. Now the siege mode. The siege mode is the classic siege mode that we can find on the striker battleships. It will increase your DPS, it will increase the alpha damage, but at the same time it will make your ship very slow and you are not going to be able to warp out. So it's again very familiar with the previous striker battleships, and it has also a impact on range and tracking. Now, since it is a bit more difficult to skill into these ships because they require expert skills, and as you all know, expert skills are quite time consuming, the classic striker battleships might have a bit better DPS for lower skill requirements, but the main thing about these Navy battleships is the fact that they are ridiculously tanky. These things are bricks, and the main thing on the Navy battleships is the tank.
Accepted.
The main thing for the striker battleships is their DPS, but for the Navy ships it's the tank, and they still do have some very nice DPS to go alongside the tank. Now you can do a build like this with triple adaptives and one damage control. After all, you already have a bonus on the damage control, so you might as well take advantage of the extra resistance that you can get out of the damage control, and I have used one Nosferatu instead of the neutralizer. But in PvP a neutralizer might be the better choice because it does help a lot against smaller targets. Okay, let me orbit and let's take a look at the tank. Now I will be doing a DPS PvP build. I think that's going to be very interesting. 616,000 hit points, 88, 90, 88 and 90%. Really solid and really stable. 23 seconds is the activation time, 135 seconds is the reactivation delay, which honestly, this is the longest running damage control in the game. It outperforms the damage control from the angel ships, which is again very interesting. 1.8 million hit points and 96 and 97% resistance on the shield. 58,000 shield hit points, by the way, which is still pretty good, and I would say pretty solid. Again, an active tank that has crazy shield stats. I love it. Okay, let me dock and let me change the build
Docking
one
request
more
accepted.
time. Well, multiple times. I mean, I have a lot of ideas that I want to share with you here. Of course, there's going to be more, but let me change that one adaptive. You can change the adaptive into one reactive shield hardener, which helps against railguns, against drones, and it also helps against lasers. Always a nice idea to have one reactive if you expect to fight a ship that uses lasers or railguns or drones. Would effectively
Undocking.
significantly reduce the incoming damage from those weapon systems, because they only do 2 damage types and the reactive is really effective against a single or dual damage type weapon. Now let's take a look at the stats. 509,000 hit points, 87, 90, 87 and 89% resistance, which is a little bit lower, but the reactive does change the stats based on the damage that's coming in. 1.77 million hit points with the damage roll active. 96% resist on all damage types. Pretty solid, and I am fairly happy with the current result on this boat. Offers some very good tank. Now the DPS is going to be perhaps lower than on a Tempest Striker, which again does come to the fact that these ships are really skill heavy, which means that you have to spend a lot of time to get all the expert skills on level 5 if you want
Docking
to get the
request
maximum
accepted.
effect out of these ships. If you are specialized in a certain weapon system, then it's not going to be a problem. But if you have multiple weapon systems, then you might not have the expert skills on level 5. I'm working towards that. I have all level 5 skills for cruisers, I think. Well, for most cruisers, but there is still some cruisers that don't have all skills, at least in my case, on level 5. Now, the next build is going to be a passive shield tank. A build that I personally really like. I use it on the Macariel, although I never really had a good chance to test it out, but I used it and I like how it works. Now with the extra shield resistance that you get out of this ship, a build like this is going to be, I would say, quite interesting, because it is going to make this ship incredibly difficult to shoot down. I mean, these things are extremely tanky, the tankiest battleships in the game, literally. So they have a very interesting purpose currently in the game. 721,000 hit points, 90, 92, 90 and 92%. Well, this is, yeah. Add a logistic ship alongside this Tempest and this thing is not dying. And this is not, this is even without the damage roll. Now with the damage roll, the stats are, the tank is 2.1 million, 97% on all damage types. You know, I like tank ships. I mean, you guys already know that probably. And this thing is ridiculously tanky. One of the tankiest battleships that I have flown so far. And 3064.78 DPS with the barrage implant and with the siege mode active, which is still really good DPS. You get good DPS and you get an amazing tank. Now, you can add some shield extenders if you like to use shield extenders, and now you have 78,000 in shield, and you still have some pretty good shield resistance. A little bit lower, but you get a lot more shield volume for the tank. So let's take a look at how much hit points I can get out of this ship. I recommend that you also use the shield extender general units, which will increase the shield per extender by about 20%, which is going to in the end give you much more shield. 482,000 hit points. I forgot one extender. Now it's 642,000 hit points. 85, 88, 85 and 87. Pretty solid, pretty good and pretty balanced. Overall, nice tank. And of course you can click on the extenders in order to activate them. You also have the damage control that can be combined with the extenders to absorb as much damage as possible. So you really do have a lot of tanking options on the ships. A passive tank is going to work really well. Although I have to say the passive tank would work even better if you have a logistic ship at your side to recover your shield. But overall, I am pretty satisfied with how this ship looks. 1.9 million hit points with the damage control, and the extender does extend the shield quite a noticeable value. It used to be much more in the past, but you know, they have changed that, so yeah, been a while since that April patch. The passive tank used to be ridiculous back then with the triple plates and triple shield extenders. Now you can do something like this. Again, the reactive hardener is going to be very good against lasers, railguns and drones. And let me see what else I can do. Triple adaptives, one damage tool and one shield extender is also a valid option. You can use an afterburner if you like, but the ship already has a bonus on lower signature, so you can take advantage of that bonus by using the micro warp drive. And I am back at that active shield tank.
Undocking.
Triple adaptives, a damage control and a micro warp drive. Whoops, wrong click, didn't want to look at the station. Okay, adaptives are on, orbit at 0. And now let's take a look at the tank. 616,000 hit points, 88, 90, 88 and 90%. Okay, pretty good. With the damage control, the tank is 1.8 million, 96, 97, 96 and 97. Which honestly is pretty good. Pretty solid stats. Let's talk, and now let me go on to my favorite part, onto the DPS part. So I have triple burst Marauders, and I will attempt to go with the classic PvP setup. Now, since you have a lot more base shield resistance, you can literally go and add quad gyro stabilizers, because the ship does behave like you have two adaptives already enabled. So a build like this on the Navy ships is actually a pretty good choice. Now you have some decent tank. The damage control lasts 23 seconds, which honestly is longer than you will need in most fights. And you have fantastic DPS as well. So while these ships do require very good skills to operate, they eventually will give you some fantastic performance. You have to remember that the striker battleships don't have the base shield resistance of these ships, which makes these ships, I would say, more suitable for a build like this. Now the barrage implant was nerfed a couple times by now, I think, which in result means that my overall DPS is going to be a little bit lower, but still I'm pretty happy with the DPS output on the Tempest Navy. 9.6 thousand DPS. I'm pretty happy with that number. I think that's very close to my Macarial.
Docking request accepted.
You have to remember that my skills on the Macarial are better, and the Macarial does require advanced skills. This requires expert skills. So the main difference would be in the skills here. I'm probably missing some levels, but in any case, still a fantastic DPS output on the Navy Tempest, or on the Vargur. I think you can call it the Navy Tempest or Vargur. It's almost the same ship. I really wish that they kept the Vargur design. That ship is beautiful, but in any case, this is still, I would say, good enough. And you can do a build like this. Also, one of the more recent builds that I started using on my Macarial. It does give you some a bit extra tank, and it also retains about the same DPS that you already had.
Docking request
Now I
accepted.
think I messed up with the module, so let me quickly dock, and let me just quickly take a look at the maximum DPS again, because I believe I have missed one gyro stabilizer somehow. So I'll just quickly do this little test again, and then I'll swap back the more tanky DPS build. Now, passive tanking became one of my favorite ways on the tank approach in PvP. Basically, with a build like this, you can combine good DPS while also retaining some
Docking request
good
accepted.
tank. Now, a build like this is going to work in most cases without a problem, but you have to remember that there are some ships that simply are made to be bricks, whether it be passive or active. Some ships are just meant to be bricks. For example, the Abaddon, Rock, Hyperion, and other ships that have bonuses on shield boosters or armor pairs, or ships that have a bonus on base shield or armor resistance. Against those ships, I would recommend that you use a active tank. Basically, you have to outlast their tank, because a passive DPS tank is not going to be living long enough to go through their tank, and in most cases they can actually tank your DPS without a problem. So you have to be very careful what targets you engage with a build like this, but in most cases it should work without a problem, because unfortunately we all know that we don't have a lot of good builds in the game nowadays. Most ships that you will encounter will have a full glass build, a cursed build, or simply a bad build. But eventually and occasionally you will encounter a very, very nice build. And this is a passive shield tank build that also has DPS, but it's more focused on that passive aspect. It gives you a bit more shield resistance, and you can combine the extender with the adaptive hardener and the damage control, which will give you some more shield volume while also retaining some of that nice shield resistance, and of course you still will have that DPS. This will be a PvE build exclusively for high sec. Don't go into low sec with this build. You will get destroyed very, very easily, because it's just not built to that this build is only for high sec islands, because I know that a lot of you guys like to go in high sec islands. So this is also the options. This ship is also a valid option for PvE. I forgot how to speak for a second. That's consequence of recording at 3 AM, I guess. But it's okay. My apologies for any mistakes that I might accidentally make throughout this video. 5.9 thousand. I mean, the DPS will be about the same. The Tempest fleet with a tank integration setup is going to be replicating the Vargur easily, and I'll be doing that in the in-depth review of the ship. I will be doing the integration builds because I think it will be very fun to see how it will work and how tanky I can make this ship. So let's take a little ride and let's see how the Tempest Navy works in combat. Now, as I've mentioned before, my skills are not really the best for this thing, so the clear time and the overall performance is going to be a little bit different. When I say a little bit different, I mean a little bit lower. You will notice the difference in skills, especially when I start flying some of the other Navy ships. But that's fine. I mean, I'm mostly skilled for the normal ships, and these ships just came out, so with time my skills will become better and their performance will be much better. Now, and of course, I mean, I have to say, this is not my ship, this is my friend's ship, and you might be wondering, how much these ships do actually cost. Well, they are currently indeed quite expensive. Not really sure what happened with that promise that they will reduce the IP cost. I mean, we had that update today, and they did talk about changing that estimated cost. And when I already talk about estimated cost, let me take a look at how much these things are currently going for on the market. Well, the estimated price is 16 billion on the market, but the ship itself is going for 5.9 lowest, averaging about 637, 7.4. So yeah, they are indeed quite expensive ships. They cost 3 times more than a average striker battleship, which is kind of to be expected. After all, they do require a striker as material, or 2 of them actually. And besides that, you also have to have the blueprint, and besides the blueprint, you also have to have a lot of materials. Now, the good thing that I've been told, they're not costing that much in ISK, the click cost, as people call it. I think the click cost is like 400 million or maybe below that actually, while the ship itself costs over 6 billion on the market. So you can make very good money by producing and selling these ships on the market. Now, the bad thing, well, I said the bad thing. You all know the boxes that are currently running around. That's basically made Plex vanish from the market. Well, the boxes, when they go away, the price on these things is going to significantly go up. So the profit margin by manufacturing and selling them should theoretically go up. Now, with the current boxes running around, and with the price of the ship being 5.9 billion lowest, let's say if the price triples, then the issues will be about 15 billion average, which is pretty good price. And the cost for 100 million to produce, yeah, you can make some very nice ISK. that's all based on what I've been told from players who are in the know, from players who basically are doing the stuff for they're doing industry stuff. Same thing will be happening with the faction cruisers, with the new faction cruisers. They also will become a lot more expensive. So I'm very excited for that. Expensive ships to sell. I mean, does spark interest, at least in my case here, to go. And I mean, I already have some very nice industry skills that I did let's skill on the side for a while now, actually. And yeah, I think if it ends up being good, I'll be producing these ships. Eventually, slowly as time goes, their price will drop, but they should still be quite expensive on the market. And honestly, I can actually kind of see them buffing these ships in a way. I know a lot of you guys are talking about the passive shield regeneration speed being nerfed. I'm one of the players that don't like the change. I love the passive shield tanking. I wish that they do buff the passive shield regeneration on these ships to separate them, to make them more unique. I mean, can you imagine how fun it can be to have a passive shield tank? I had a blast with the Fiend, with the previous original shield recharge rate. That was insane. That thing was crazy. And I think these ships do need something interesting and new to them. Now, having fantastic shield resistance or armor on these ships, that's fantastic. I love it, and that should stay. If they are meant to be very similar to the Marauders, then that shield and armor tank, should be there. One thing that makes these things unique is the tank, and I'm all in for that. Having a unique tank is perfect. Will make these ships attractive for players. Now the same thing they need to do the same thing with the cruisers, and basically give them a lot more shield recharge, because that made them unique. Without that shield recharge, they're just they're the average fancy looking faction cruiser that costs 3 billion. But with that shield recharge, they would be very, very unique, and I can tell you, they would be extremely fun to fly. A good passive tank is a lot more fun than a active tank, because you sacrifice that active part to get a fantastic passive recharge rate on the shield. Now the armor can't really be passive tanked because it doesn't recover, but a shield tank, yeah, totally. I'd be able to do some crazy stuff with these things. And I would be able to give you guys a lot more builds that are from EVE Online, and that would be hilarious. But we will see what they will do with these ships. I do expect them to be buffed because I know a lot of players are currently demanding that shield regeneration gets increased, and I have that feeling. I have that feeling, and I've heard some talk that it's going to happen. So fingers crossed that we get that buffed shield regeneration on these ships. Would be fantastic. So how did this Tempest perform? It performed, I mean, I have no complaints. It's a very fun to fly ship, an expensive and a very unique ship as well. So I'm pretty happy with the performance. I mean, I can't really complain because my skills, expert skills, need, I guess, work. But I'm pretty happy with how it performed. The Tempest Navy definitely feels like the Vargur, and with some minor adjustments in the future, the Tempest Navy and all other Navy ships, as well as the new faction cruisers, will be, I would say, definitely much more fun to fly. Now, should you buy one? Well, if you have the skills for it and If you want to do
Warp drive active.
something funny with these ships, like do a glass DPS build with fantastic tank, you know, you can easily do that with these ships, with all Navy ships to be more accurate. And as promised, I will be recording and playing all of them. I start with the Tempest, and tomorrow you can expect the Raven, I believe, and then after the Raven, the Megatron, and well, currently trying to get my hands on the Apocalypse, but I'll be recording all of them, and I'll show you the builds and performance on all of these ships. So with that being said, hope that you guys enjoyed. If you would like to see more and if you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.